What's up, guys? Bread2Loaf here on a very special segment of Bread2Loaf Productions. So today we are in a undisclosed Wisconsin location at our family's land, and as you can see before us are our two utility tractors that we will be working on today in this episode. So over on our right here is our McCormick Farmall Super C tractor, and this is a tractor that was built in the early 50s. Very nice tractor. Does everything we ask it to do and more. And then over in the darkness over there in the shed is our first tractor, and that is also a McCormick Farmall, and that is a Model A 1947 model year tractor, and that's our smaller tractor. So we're going to be working on both these tractors today in this episode. We're going to be starting on the Super C first. I've already washed it, and I have installed a rain stopper, which we will look at very soon. But this one doesn't need much work. It just needs a good clean, lubrication, some grease. There's a bunch of grease nipples around there, and we're going to grease those up. But beyond that, it's pretty much good to go. We'll check the things like the coolant and the oil, but for the most part, it's a very good looking tractor. It works very well, and it's been well maintained even before we got it. And then we'll move on. The bulk of the work will be on our Model A over here. That needs some love. It's got some issues. The rain stopper is getting kind of gross. It currently does not shut off with the ignition, so you have to turn off the gas to turn the tractor off, and that just happened recently. So we're going to be looking into the ignition switch and seeing why that's bad, or if that's bad, or we might be replacing it. And then there's a few other little things like the Sediment Bowl gasket is leaking, so we're going to be replacing that. And also the throttle is worn out from many years of use, almost 70 years of use. I'm sure it's probably the original throttle. So we got a new replacement aftermarket one that should be the same fit, form, and function, and even roughly the same color. It'll be nice and bright red, but it'll be roughly the same color. So right now I'm actually working out of my car. I have all the tools I need in my car, brought them from home. So we got coolant, we got oil, we got all my wrenches and other little accoutrements. We got a grease gun. And then up here, as you can see, we got tractor parts, laid them out here. So these are all going on the Model A. We have a new Sediment Bowl gasket. We have replacement ignition switches if the one on it is bad. We have a new throttle assembly sold by Yesterday's Tractors. Great company. If you have an old tractor, check them out. We are not sponsored, but they're a great company. And then finally, we have a new rain stopper. That's on the list for today. All right, so let's get the episode started. The first tractor we're going to be looking at today is our Super C model tractor. I don't know why they call it the Super, but that's what they call it. Right up here, McCormick Farmall Super C. If anyone knows why they called it that, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know. So this one was built in Chicago, Illinois in '52. This is a 1953 model year tractor. They only built about 98,000 of these. They were built from 51 to 54 model year. This is actually the more powerful of our two tractors. This one is rated for 24 horsepower, believe it or not, and that's the more powerful one of the two. It features a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder gasoline engine, and that is mated to a 4-speed transmission plus reverse. It does have its own alternator, carbureted obviously, has an oil bath air filter, which we will be checking. And yeah, it's a pretty nice little tractor. Before the episode started, we actually put on a rain stopper. And if you don't know what a rain stopper is, on a lot of older tractors and other farm equipment, you have this thing up here, and it does what it says. It stops the rain. So when the tractor is off and it's not running, and if this is left outside, rain could potentially fall down the muffler and go straight into the cylinders or the exhaust manifold. And you don't want water in your engine, obviously. So this prevents rain from getting in there, hence why it's called a rain stopper. And then obviously when it's running, there's a counterweight on this flapper here, so the exhaust can escape like that. I'll show it in operation later. But yeah, that's what a rain stopper does. So this one did not have a rain stopper when we got it, and I just installed it yesterday. So it's really simple install. Essentially, there's just a bolt with a nut right there, and it's just kind of like an exhaust clamp where it just kind of cinches together around that pipe. So you just slap it on and tighten it down, and it cinches up and it stays. We'll be installing a new one of those on the A over there. And then yesterday, additionally, I did not film this, but I basically just went around and I lubed up all the points that articulate, like these universal joints for the steering shaft, and then things like all these levers up here. I lubed up all these connection points with Seafoam Deep Creep, which is a nice penetrant, and lubricant. That's what I did. Gave it a quick wash. It's still a little bit dirty, but you know, it's a tractor. It's never going to be clean. So today, like I said, we're just going to hit all the grease nipples with some grease, like a bunch in the steering system up here, and then there's one I know on the steering rod right there where it bolts in and sits in that channel right there, and there's other around it. So we're going to be hitting all those, and then we're going to try to air up the tires, make sure those are at their spec. They don't have to be super high. Actually, a little bit low is nice because now it gives you a little bit more traction. And then maybe if we have time, we will be checking out these lights. They do not seem to work, so we might be getting them into a little bit of electrical. Overall, it runs great, no real issues. So you'll notice the gauges up there. The amp meter does work. Whenever the tractor's on, it does show it's charging, and then there's discharging. So I know that works. The coolant temperature gauge right there, bottom one, does not seem to work. The needle never moves from cold, even when the tractor is fully warmed up and hot. I'm assuming that will be a gauge issue, but we might look into that on another date. And then there is a gauge up there, which I am not sure exactly what that one does, but it is very worn and faded and probably original to the tractor. So maybe at a later date, we might look into replacing those, but that's not in the scope of this video. All right, well, we have never really had a grease gun as long as I've been coming up here. I went out and bought a cheap-ish grease gun. So we're gonna install some grease. And this will stay up here on the land as our grease gun for the tractors. So that will be nice. All right, so first grease point we're gonna hit is this steering shaft right here. I don't know the last time this was greased. I've certainly never done it. I've never seen anyone else do it. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that gets grease. All right, so we have grease at the tip. We're gonna go ahead and see if this takes grease. And yes, we have grease coming out. All right, so you can see we shot grease in there and then it started coming out on the top there. That's good. All right, so the excess grease that came off that steering shaft, don't want to go to waste. So we're gonna put it on our battery terminals, both positive and negative. And that will just help water and corrosion from not getting in between the post and the terminal. And it'll make sure our connectivity stays good for a long time. All right, so then we have a bunch of grease nipples in the front. We got a few on the tie rod ends. We got some over in the steering rack area. So we're gonna hit all of those in a cool time-lapse video. All right, so I probably hit about 25 or so grease points all over the tractor. Even got the ones down there for the clutch levers, the brake levers, wheel axles, all the steering components, even the one underneath there that I almost missed. And then of course, the one up on the steering column. And then a few miscellaneous over in the hydraulics area. Should be all greased up and good to go. Now we're gonna go ahead and check the oil level in the air cleaner oil bath, make sure that's good. So to get this oil cap off, you gotta undo this bolt, the loop in the end. And I can already see that the end of it right here is covered in dirt. Hasn't been looked at in a while. Go ahead and hit it with penetrating fluid first and wipe away some of that dirt that's on the threads as best we can. And then we can go ahead and undo it. Now you're gonna wanna support the bottom like this because obviously when you pull it off like that, it is gonna fall. So that looks okay. Seems to be a lot of water in it though. It's very light. So we might go ahead and change that. It is very dirty. It's kind of cloudy. It should be more of a clear honey-like color. So while we're here, we'll go ahead and change it. All right, so there it is, dumped out. You can see there's some crud in the bottom there. So we're gonna go ahead and wipe that out with a towel and then fill it with fresh oil. When filling up your oil bath air cleaner, pretty much any standard motor oil will do. We're just using 10W30 standard, nothing special. And then that's what a clean, good oil bath looks like. Nice honey brown and not cloudy. Installation is reverse of removal. Snap it in there like that, and then we're going to twist back down on our clamp here, because why not? Alright, and just make sure she's tight like that. And that's basically all there is to it. All right, and then last thing we're gonna do is basically check the oil. All right, so on this tractor, oil check levels are up here. So this is kind of like an old Model T, where to check the oil, you literally just open a valve in the oil pan, and if oil comes out of this bottom one, but not this top one, that means you're getting kind of low, but you don't need to worry yet. If no oil comes out of the bottom one, that means you need to worry. You have way too low of oil. And if oil comes out of both the top and the bottom, or just the top rather, because you know it's going to come out the bottom, then that means your oil level is good. And then obviously our drain bolt is down here at the very bottom. But we're not going to be changing it today. We're just going to be opening up these valves. We have our drain pan below here to catch any. So we're going to go ahead and open up the top one first. So we just crack that open. Alright, so it doesn't seem like anything's coming out. So we'll close that. And then we'll open our lower one. Sometimes they can be a little bit stuck. Alright, there we go. Alright, so you can see right there we have drips of oil. So our oil is somewhere between the up here and up here. So that's fine, that's decent. Nothing to worry about there. We will go ahead and just throw a little bit more oil down the fill tube, just so we have it kind of leaking out this top one here, and then we'll call that good. And then we're gonna go up top here and top it off. Okay, so one of the last things we're gonna do is simply check the air pressure in all 4 tires. And we're just gonna make sure that the front and the back are consistent with each other on the sides, and that they're not too low. So we're just going to get out our pressure gauge and go ahead and test all 4 of them. Alright, so we got about 18.5 on this tire. They're supposed to be about 20 to 25, so we might pump that one up. Alright, this one is 11.5, so that definitely needs some air in it. Alright, so on these bigger tires, they are max rated for 35. These tires are a bit old, so we're probably going to run a little bit lower than that. These are at 12. That's fine for grip. If you want a lot of grip, you might go up to about 15 maybe, and we'll make them both consistent. So let's go check the 4th tire, see what that is. Alright, and our last tire, also about 13, so we'll put them both up to 15 and call it good on those. Alright, and that should be the Super C all done and tuned up. So we're going to go ahead and move my car, obviously, get all the stuff out of the way, get that pan out from underneath there. And then we're going to go ahead and fire up and take her for a short spin before we start working on the A. Alright, now we're moving on to the Model A Farmall 1947. This is obviously one of their very first models they made. And it's a little 18 horsepower, 4-cylinder, 1.9 liter gas engine, powered, 4-speed with a reverse. And it's very similar to the Super C, just pretty much a smaller, shrunk down version. So the main things we're going to do are get the ignition switch functioning so you can actually shut off the tractor with the ignition switch. Right now you have to kill the gas, which is kind of a pain. And then we're going to do a few other things like the throttle needs repairing, or replacing rather, and rain stopper and replace those. And then a bunch of little things, change the oil and grease. So let's get to it. Okay, so first thing we're going to address is this ignition switch right here. And apparently it does not work, as I'm told by my uncle. So we're going to go ahead and test it with a multimeter and make sure there is continuity breaks. I'm suspecting no. Alright, so I have my multimeter set in continuity mode, so if there's a closed circuit, it will beep. So right now I have the leads on the 2 posts of the ignition switch. kill switch, and right now it is an open circuit, and when I pull it up it indicates closed, and now it's open again. So that seems to be functioning. Alright, well, before we diagnose what the ignition issue is, right now it has no gas whatsoever. The only gas that's left is in this bowl right here, and you can see it's below copper line level, so no gas is getting to the carb. But this is good since we're going to be changing the sediment bowl and gasket anyway. So the tank is bone dry, so now's a good time to undo this copper line and unscrew it from the tank. Well, it appears that I don't have any thread sealant for the sediment bowl to tank connection, that threaded portion. Unfortunately, it looks like right now we're just going to pop the bowl off and replace the gasket and see if that fixes the leak. But if that doesn't fix the leak, we're only going to put a little bit of gas in it just to run it. But if that doesn't fix the leak, then we'll drain out the gas again. We'll get some thread sealer. Alright, so there is the sediment bowl off, and you can actually see there's a lot of sediment in there. How cool is that? And then here's the screen. Yeah, that gasket looks pretty fried, so I definitely needed replacing. And we got a screen with it too. But yeah, there's a lot of particles and sediment in there, so that's cool to see. So we got a brand new sediment bowl and screen from yesterday's tractors. This is a replacement. So we're gonna go ahead and dump out the sediment bowl and clean it first. Alright, so our sediment bowl is all clean. Now we got a brand new gasket and filter. So we're actually going to try to reuse this part too, because it's got like a metal rib on it. So let's clean that off. Alright, so now we're going to take these guys and sandwich it like that. And then we're going to reassemble it. So those go in there like that, and then the gasket goes on top with that hole in the middle. Alright, now we just got to get these lined up. Okay, there we go. Got them all lined up. Okay, we're going to give that a quick tighten with the wrench. Alright, so that should be pretty tight now. And now we're going to put a little bit of gas in it and see if she'll fire up and see what happens. Alright, so I got the tractor started and moved out. There seems to be a fuel issue, and indeed the sediment bowl is leaking still. You can see it's leaking right there, and you just saw a drop. So it is the little drain valve stops the gas. That is what is leaking, so we'll be changing that. Alright, so moving on, we're going to replace the switch. So after pushing it in, pulling it out a few times, it is indeed bad. So right there's continuity. So now you can see as I push it in and out, there's still continuity. So that switch is now bad. So that's why we have replacements. We got replacement switches, and hopefully that will fit in there just like that, and we'll have the same sort of stop and start ability that we had before. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and replace this switch with a working one. So this is going to be a 3/4 inch nut right here, holding this switch body on. And we're going to go ahead and remove those electrical connections first as well. And then we got to get this top cap off. There we go, now it's loose. Alright, so that's off, and now we can pull this off that we now know is bad. So we'll set that aside for now, and we'll get our new one, and we're going to install that. Alright, so here is one of our new switches. It's rated 75 amps, 6 to 28 volts DC. This is a 6-volt tractor, so that's just fine. So this one goes on roughly the same way. We unscrew the top portion first, and then let's make sure it fits in there, and it does. So it looks like we may need a washer to go over this. So I'm going to go ahead and find one of those real quick. Alright, so we found some washers. Now we can get on with it. So we're going to go ahead and put a washer down there first. Then go up through like that. Alright, then we'll take our second washer, put it on top like that. Alright, it's going to look something kind of like that. Alright, that looks pretty good. Nice and tight. Now we can install a lock nut. Just a second nut on top to keep it locked together. There we go. It's another lock together. And then we can install our knob. So that's just going to thread on there just like that. Alright, so now we got in and out. And then we can test our continuity and see if it works consistently. So right now it is open. Pulled up, we have a circuit connection. Now it's off again. So there we go. We know that's going to work. Now we just got to get the connections connected up. Alright, so now we have our two wires that need to be connected up to it. Alright, so this kit does come with small lock washers, so we will be using those. And since these electrical contacts look really corroded, we're going to go ahead and give it a quick hit with the wire brush, just while they're off. Anyway, so that way we have the best electrical contact possible. Alright, so now we're going to move over to the other side and get the last connector on. Alright, and there we go. Switch is fully connected. Contacts are cleaned up and put back on. Alright, so I just decided to put a full ring terminal on this end because the other one was not quite right. So we're going to just go ahead and do it right the first time. Not have to worry about that 5 years from now. Alright, it's a brand new day here on Bread2Loaf, and we discovered last night that our ignition switch, the original one, is not the problem. This is a 6-volt positive ground system, so you can see there the positive, and it's bolted right to the chassis, so it is a positive ground system. And we discovered that there is an issue with the electrical system that is not in the switch. It is with these wires and essentially it's somewhere else. So we're looking into that. The sediment bowl is still leaking, so we will be changing that. And then we've gone ahead today. Right now we are draining out the carburetor through the float bowl and into this can. So we're getting all the gas out of the tank up here, and then we're going to be changing that sediment bowl very soon. Also the sediment bowl nut, which is up here, that was leaking, so we're going to put some thread sealant tape on that when we put it back together. And additionally, we got a pipe wrench over here so far. We screwed in this metal piece right here. There's a threaded portion in the exhaust manifold which goes down here. And we screwed this section in, and then we clamped that back down. We straightened up this muffler, and we put on a new rain stopper. So that's cool. Old one is sitting over there on the shelf, really carbony and nasty and gross. We might save that for a future use. Anyway, I just pulled off the air cleaner, and check out this air cleaner oil bath bowl. And keep in mind, this is supposed to be full of oil with no crap sitting in it. And yeah, this is exactly how I found it when I pulled it off there just now. And as you can see, it has pretty much no oil in there and a bunch of crap. So that is not good. We really need to clean that out, and we're gonna get fresh oil in there. Alright, so you saw a before shot, and then here's an after, exactly what it should look like as you're putting it back on the tractor. Nice and clean, honey gold oil. Alright, so we got the old sediment bowl off, and here's our new one, sediment bowl assembly rather. New valve, actually new gasket, new screen, and then that threads up into the tank like so. And then we have our out. So we're going to be threading this back up into the fuel tank. As you can see right now, it is disconnected. That's where the hole is, and then that's where the copper line is. We're going to remove that brass plug that came with it right there, or that brass sleeve, and we'll use the one that's already on there because I don't feel like cutting it off and crimping on a new end on that copper line. So I don't even have the tools for it. So we're going to do this. Alright, well obviously as you can hear, the sediment bowl issue is what fixed it. It just wasn't getting enough fuel. So we got a brand new sediment bowl there. Brand new sediment bowl, and I fixed the leaky carburetor nut. So there we go. The Model A is back and running. We still got a few things to do on warming it up so we can change the oil. You just saw me change the oil air filter bath, and then we're gonna do a new throttle, clean it up, and yeah. Alrighty, so brand new throttle installed. Works just like it should, and all the teeth are now not all chewed up. Let me go show you the old one and I'll show you the difference. So here's the old one, and you can just see how worn those teeth are. They're basically rounded out, and just not looking good. So that's why we're changing it out, because the lever, the catch on the lever could not catch on these teeth, and it was just hopping out of throttle positions left and right. All right, and to show you that it works, we're gonna get it fired up. So there you can see we are idling. I'll move it up. Higher RPM, full throttle, and then back down to idle. And it actually stays where you put it. It doesn't jump out of gear or out of the teeth position. And there you go. So next thing we're gonna do is we are gonna change the oil. So it has a oil filter right here. The oil flows through this. There's a paper filter in there that we gotta take off this metal canister for. And then obviously we have a drain plug right down there, and we're gonna drain the oil and then put 10W30 full synthetic in it so it'll run beautifully. Oil filter canister is in here. So we're gonna go ahead and break this loose. This is a 7/8, if anyone out there is working on a similar vehicle, tractor. Now we just ran the engine for a good long while, so it's gonna be relatively hot. So keep that in mind. And it's gonna leak everywhere, like so. All right, so there's our bolt out. And here is our canister. And then we want to take the old and the new and compare them. And they look relatively similar, same size. All right, so we're gonna put our new filter on and then get our metal cap back on. And we're gonna thread this in by hand for a while until it starts getting tight, and then we can tighten it down with a wrench. I'm going to create the tension for the seal on this bottom cup here. And if this isn't tight, then oil is gonna start leaking out. So we want this relatively tight. Now we're gonna take our rag here and we're gonna wipe all the way around here and just make sure that there's no oil sitting here, because we want to know if there's any leaks. And to do that, we need to have this already free of oil. So just go ahead and give the entire thing a good wipe, make it look pretty anyway while you're doing it, so why not? Okay, oil filter changed. Now we're going to go ahead underneath the tractor and we are going to start to drain out the engine oil. Alright, so this is going to be hot, obviously, so we want to do this relatively quickly. Oh boy. Well, looks like we got about half of it. Not terrible, but not great either. Okay, now that it's mostly drained, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the plug. Yeah, this oil definitely needed to be changed. It was pretty grimy. Alright, so when we pour the oil in, we want to know kind of how much we're getting in there. So to do that, we're going to be using oil petcocks here. We're going to keep the top one open and the bottom one closed, so as we're pouring the oil in, once we see it come out of this top one here, then we know that we are, in fact, full to the point that it needs to be. And like I said, we're putting in 5 quarts of Amazon Basics high mileage full synthetic 10W30 motor oil. This should help it run very smoothly and very efficiently for a tractor. Alright, I'm pouring the oil in, and now we're going to be watching to see if that top drain drips any oil, and when it does, we know we're going to be about full. Alright, and now we see the drips, so that means we are hitting our full. So we're going to go ahead and close that, and then we're going to start and run the engine and get everything circulated, get it warmed up, and then after about 10 minutes we will go ahead and recheck. Alright, it's getting late, and this is the last thing we're going to be doing in this section of the video. But there we go, it is running, the oil is changed. It was dripping out of the top one just ever so slightly, so we know we got all the oil we need. And the pressure is up to 20 psi, which is fabulous. So there we go. Job well done. Alright, so today is the final day and we're just going to be doing some cursory maintenance, greasing everything, and then giving it a quick wash and wipe down. And that'll be it for this episode of Bread2Loaf Farm Maintenance, Tractor Edition. So as you can hear, it's running pretty well. Got great oil pressure and seems to be running pretty great now. Alright, and that's it for the greasing. We got grease in all those points. We got the steering box right there. Got up here at the steering wheel area. And basically all the suspension points. So that's going to be doing it for the grease. And last thing we're going to do is bring it over to the water hose and we're going to give it a quick wash. And then she'll be good to go for a while. Here we are over at the water spigot and we are going to be giving her a quick wash, wiping her down, trying to get some of the oil and stuff off there, and then we'll be done.